Have you ever wondered where the problems in the world today would exist if we had deeper connection to ourselves, others, and the environment and acted from that place? Welcome to the Conscious Action Podcast with your host, Brian Berneman, who believe that connection is the key to taking conscious action as individuals and creating a better world. We are here to raise awareness and inspire meaningful action by sharing stories, knowledge, and conversations with thought leaders and change makers. From sustainability to well-being and everything related to conscious living, our mission is to empower you to be the change that you want to see in the world.
Welcome to a new episode of the Conscious Action Podcast. I am Brian Berneman, your host. And for this episode, I wanted to talk a little bit about the most important person in the world. Of course, this is going to be different depending on who I ask. My answer is going to be different than yours. This is something that a lot of times with a lot of clients and in all of my students at university, I ask them this question. Who is the most important person in the world? For each of them. And a lot of people have a lot of different answers. Some people answer God or their parents or their children. And some people, not many, answer themselves. And that is the answer that for me is the most important one. Is how can we get to the place where for all of us, we are the most important person in the world? Of course, that doesn't mean that others are not important. That just means that we understand the importance that we have for our own life. And this a lot of times comes to something that we have all learned, that is either to be of service or to help others or to prioritize others, putting others' needs first than ours for many different reasons in terms of survival or belonging or different traumas or mechanisms that we have developed. Yet, my counter to that is once we become aware of this, how can we allow ourselves to understand that if we are not prioritizing ourselves, we cannot be the best version of ourselves that we can be to then support others? And do we want to belong with those that actually don't know who we really are? In the space of trauma, we talk about this as the difference of being authentic and belonging. And that most times what we do is we choose belonging over being our true beings or our true selves, being authentic. And again, I understand why we do it. Once we become conscious of it, can we choose ourselves? Can we become the most important person in our lives? Therefore, we can actually show up better for others. And not only that, if I am showing up for myself and I'm making myself a priority, I might be showing others how to do that for themselves. In this society, we need a lot of times people to show us or to model certain ways of being that if we don't know it, we don't know what's possible. If we grow up with all of the people around us always doing things for others and not prioritizing themselves, not prioritizing their health, not prioritizing their mental health, not prioritizing their needs, we are most likely going to do the same. So we need people to show us different ways of being. And I go back to the same idea a lot of times with the airplanes. When we get on an airplane and when they are giving the speech for safety, they always say, in case of an emergency, if the mask comes down, put your mask first on before helping someone else. And this is the same for life. If we can allow ourselves to prioritize our needs, then we can actually help others in the best way possible. Because how can I be myself or be the best version of myself if I am not giving myself the permission to do that because I'm trying to fit in into someone else's idea of what is okay. This, of course, can be a process. It has been a process for me. It has been a process for a lot of the people that I work with because this means that we need to reorganize a lot of our ideas of what it means, for example, to be selfish. I keep on saying to my students, be selfish, don't be self-centered. Being selfish means you're prioritizing yourself, especially when you have abandoned yourself, when you haven't been making yourself a priority. If that has been you, whether it is because you're trying to please others, for belonging, for whatever reason, once you realize that you haven't been prioritizing yourself, you need to do something different, which sometimes can feel a little bit weird, challenging. So it is a process of unlearning the ways that you've been doing things so that you can then show up better for yourself. Then you know yourself better and you're allowing yourself to emerge your true self. That means that a lot of your circumstances might change. Perhaps the people that you've been around are not going to accept that version of yourself, and you need to be okay with that being the case. Perhaps they accept you, but perhaps they don't. Because if people are used to a certain version of yourself that is always, trying to fit in, so you do everything that is for their needs, you're not doing the things that are for yours. Once you start to put boundaries and you start to actually show up better for yourself, perhaps that's not what they like, which is okay. We are not for everyone. Everyone is not for us. So we need to be okay with that. So we need to understand that prioritizing ourselves is not a self-centered idea. It's not that the world, revolves around you, that you are the only thing, that you are the most important person in the whole universe. You're the most important person for yourself. I am the most important person for myself. My friend is the most important person for them. Everybody for themselves. So it doesn't diminish someone else. It just means that we are prioritizing ourselves. That is important. If we don't have any sense of self-worth, we are not going to be able to do that. If we are not connecting with ourselves, we don't know who we really are, we are not going to be able to do that. If we are not, peeling off the layers and healing, we are not going to be able to go deep within to understand what's there to be unearthed so that we can show up in that way. If we have been abandoning ourselves, we need to reclaim all of those parts little by little so that then we can stand in our power, so that then we can be ourselves, so that then we can show up better for others. And sometimes as we do that, we are learning a different way. We are unlearning ways. And when we are setting boundaries, some of that might feel a little bit weird. Some of that might come out not in the best way. That's when we need to be able to, also get skills in how we are communicating with people in a way that is on understanding that, okay, if I am changing, if I'm going to prioritize myself and my needs, I need to be able to communicate this to others because that hasn't been what they know. So, I most likely I'm not going to be well received if from one day to the next, something that has been the normal thing, because it has been normalized through time, of a dynamic, suddenly I change that and I expect the other person to take it well without any explanation. So if I am able to be skilled and to share and to allow as well a process on the other side, then I might be able to create a shift within dynamics so that the others can actually accept my new boundaries. And boundaries doesn't need to be a negative thing. Boundaries are positive. Boundaries are just an understanding of our needs, of our energy, of our physical needs as well, and how we are vibing with others. The more that we understand our needs, the easier it is to honor those needs and to put on those boundaries. That's going to be helpful not only for us, but for those around us as well, because then we can show up better for others. Again, we need to be conscious of this. We need to prioritize ourselves. We need to prioritize our well-being. We need to be able to show up more for ourselves, our needs, our energy, our well-being more than we do for others. And it's not that we stop showing up for others. We do that in a better way. We do that by prioritizing as well ourselves. We can be really giving, really generous. We can be, prioritizing others whilst prioritizing ourselves instead of abandoning ourselves to do that. So we can understand we already belong, even if we are choosing something different than what we have done, even if we are choosing ourselves. We belong. Perhaps some people might not be still the right people for us, but we still belong. We don't need, as adults, to try to keep on fitting in by abandoning ourselves and our needs. We need to understand a lot of times, I say this to a lot of my clients. Each of us, we are the main character of our own movies. We are the writers, we are the producers, we are everyone. And that is true for each of us. We need to believe that we are the main character, because there's usually different ideas of what will happen in a movie with the main character. So we need to start to believing that. That's a way to start to prioritize ourselves. And we can start with simple practices. We can do this in a small way, every single day, in different ways that work for each of us depending on where we are in our lives. We need to understand that we can't from one day, most likely, change everything and suddenly I'm prioritizing myself and I'm no longer, conducting myself in the way that I've been doing for my entire life. Most likely, we need small little practices that allow us to change, to feel safe as we are creating these changes. Self-care practices, meditation, yoga, journaling, communicating some of our boundaries, those that we feel safe with, that we know that will understand us. Little changes, expanding the bubble or that zone of comfort, allowing ourselves with those that we feel that we are safe with, that we can communicate more about our needs. Perhaps a lot of times this is why we need therapists, we need coaches, we need someone that we trust that they understand this. Because sometimes with those around us, if they are not aware enough to include these changes that we're trying to make, it's going to be more challenging. But perhaps you have a good friend or someone in your family that allows you to be that person for you. Small little changes to reclaim your own power, to make yourself important again, so that you can actually be the most important person in the world. Because we need you, all of us, we need you to be the most important person in the world. Just like I am needed to be the most important person in the world. Every person, if they are the most important person in the world for themselves, then our society will work very differently. So I encourage you to think about this and to think of the ways that you can incorporate more and more and more of this to make yourself priority number one. So as always, I would love to know what resonated with you. Are you already doing this? Who is the most important person in your life, or who was before you listened to this episode? Were you already thinking that you were the most important person in your life, or someone else? I would love to know. Wherever you're finding this episode, just leave a comment and share with us. Thank you for being here as always, and until next time, bye!
What did you like the most about this episode? Take a moment to think about what change you can make in your life today.
Share your conscious action on social media using #ConsciousAction and tagging @ConsciousActionNZ so we can celebrate your impact on the world and create a ripple effect.
One easy action we would love for you to take right now is to share, like, and subscribe to this podcast. This will help us get these messages out into the world and inspire more people to take conscious action in their own lives, contributing to the better world we hope for.